Greetings everyone, I'm Fernando from Moonspell and you're watching Impact Channel.
Greetings everyone, we are here with Fernando from Moonspell. Hi.
Hello.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, man.
And congratulations on the 1755 album. What are the reactions so far for the new record?
Spectacular, I have to say. I mean, it's a different record. It's a concept record. It's a record sung in Portuguese about the history of Portugal, but also the European universal effect the earthquake had in terms of society and religion, especially. And even though we knew that was an album that will hit very hard in Portugal and in Brazil and probably in some Latin American countries, and it's happening, I think some of the most surprising, best reactions come from countries that have no idea what I'm talking about. And I think that's quite an achievement, because we did flirt with Portuguese in Alma Mater, Opium, etc., and people always loved that. And but now we try to put 1755 as an experience, as a sonic experience with Portuguese lyrics, and it seems like that the reviewers and especially the fans loved it. You know, sometimes it's just probably there was no expectation, they have no, so they listen to it with a totally clear mind, because it's like Moonspell, but it's brand new. At the same time, so I'm very, very happy, and actually very surprised that non-English persons, you know, even try to sing along in the concerts, and they know very well the album. Yeah,
We will try our best too.
yeah.
And does it feel different spiritually when you're singing in Portuguese or when you express yourself in your native language?
I think it does. I think he wouldn't, but I think it does. I mean, I always wrote stuff in English for Moonspell, and the forthcoming album after 1755 will be for sure in English. But I never digged so deep into Portuguese before writing for a band, writing for Moonspell. So I think, yeah, you're right. Spirit, in terms of commitment and feeling, it's like English, there's always a little barrier, because we always have to think about it before talking. We are like finding the words in our head, because I speak Portuguese, you know, with my kid, with my wife, with everyone, and the most stuff I read was in Portuguese. So yeah, Portuguese is something that runs very naturally and allows me also to have a kind of more dramatic performance live, as I have on the album. Yeah.
And do you have higher expectations when you write your lyrics in Portuguese?
Well, when I write lyrics, I want to tell the story. I don't think about expectations. Of course, the expectation is to make it sounding good and having impact. And also, I have. It was a concern for me that I could write. Of course, it's in Portuguese, but I could write a totally cryptic Portuguese that nobody will even understand the sonority of it. But I try to bring words like corpo, like you know, this is a good word, or sangue, which is a word that comes, you know, from the Latin, and it's words that a lot of people know, sanguis, corpus. So I try to take advantage also of the similarities and the big Latin root we have in Portugal, inventing also the Latin for the choirs. But like I say, the expectation was to tell the story right, because it's so important and so symbolic that I could stray away, and but not. I think I always discussed the lyrics with the band, not, you know, the meaning, but some words, and we were quite pick and choosy, because especially in singing in Portuguese, it was probably even another kind of responsibility, you know, than in English, that sometimes I don't make it easy, but sometimes say, well, people will understand this part because it's easy and basic.
And do you think that some languages have different energy levels?
I love all languages. I think languages are one of the most truest identities And we are very happy we have our own language and that we don't speak Spanish, on contrary of what most of the world thinks. So they're always saying gracias to me. And we have our own language. Of course, it has some similarities with Spanish, but in the end of the day, it's totally different, and we can definitely speak Spanish, but the Spanish never bother to speak Portuguese, you know. So I think some lyrics are special. I think my favorite, or some languages are special for lyrics. For instance, I really love the Soul Stuff Here and Shining albums. Last albums, also because of the fact they are in Icelandic and in Swedish. But I think other probably more Central Europe or even South European languages can be really beautiful, like Italian. It's a beautiful language. To sing in Italian, I mean, opera was almost a rule to be in Italian before it got translated to other languages. Of course, we know that German sounds good and powerful because there's many German bands, Rammstein on top, but all the other bands that sing in German. But I think French, yeah, I think some languages that I try to read and try to have a different kind of magic. English is like anything in the 21st century, a commodity, and it's helpful for us, you know, to speak with the fans everywhere in the world. But we should not forget that it's not our language, and sometimes we just butcher it, and people won't understand what we're talking about.
And if you had the chance and the energy and the time, of course, to learn a new language, which one would you like to learn?
Actually, I'm reviewing my French because I read perfectly, but it's very hard to speak with a Portuguese accent. It doesn't work.
Parlez-vous français?
I would like, yeah, un petit peu. I'd like to learn maybe Russian. Yeah, but I think it's going to be very complicated. But it's great that people that go to Portugal from Ukraine, Russia, etc., they learn Portuguese very quickly because they have the sh that it's needed and a little bit the closed lips that is needed to speak Portuguese. Portuguese is a language that you speak more for the inside and not for the outside. Like the Spanish, they speak like and the Portuguese speak more to the inside. So I think learning Russian will be definitely a cool thing for me because I would love to read some of the authors in Russian, like Bulgakov, etc.
Is there any historical person from your country who you respect a lot?
Many, of course. Fortunately, I mean, I could go the cliche question, the cliche answer, in saying our first king, Dom Alfonso, that imagined, you know, and made a country out of a small piece of land, fighting against, of course, the Spanish and everyone else that didn't want a new country to be born. But we have a lot of historical figures, like minor figures, major figures. I mean, it's 900 years of history, almost. So more in the past than in the recent past. Of course, we have contemporary people that were very helpful for the country to get democratic again, etc. But my favorite history heroes and characters are basically in the past of Portugal. One of them being also another guy named Henrique, that was not a king, but we call it an infant, which was like a son of royalty, but not to the crown. And he imagined something amazing, that Portugal was so small that we will be running out of arguments to keep our independence. So they come up with all this navigation, you know, discovering Brazil, etc., and the sea route to India, and that was very important, not only in the level of, you know, exploring the world and opening up the cultures, but also I think that at that time that was what really assured our independence as a country, because Spain was always trying, you know, to get us, up to the 17th century, where they finally gave up. Yeah.
All right. By the way, if you could team up with any author or poet to write lyrics, who would you like to choose to work with?
Dead one or alive?
Doesn't matter.
Well, I would like to team up actually with the Spanish poet, because he's my favorite. His name is Justo Jorge Padrón. and he's a very big name in Spain. I don't think he gets so much attention as he should, because I think I really love poetry, as you know, and I think that I read a lot of poets and a lot of books throughout my life, and those books were probably the best poetry I have read, so I would like to collaborate with him. But in a way I already do, you know, because I read his stuff, and sometimes his stuff inspires me. One word, a couple of words, like an atmosphere, a feeling, and I go and I write my own lyrics. Even in my poetry book, I have many poems that were born from reading his poems as well.
Are you planning to write a new book, new short novel or poem book?
No, I recently launched a small book publisher in Portugal called Alma Mater Books. So we're having some books this year, and the first book will be the 3 poetry books I wrote back in the past in Portugal, translated into English. So that's already in the printer, and we are expecting them to be printed, so we can also bring some on tour. Still, this tour is long, because fortunately there's some interest in me as a writer also outside of Moonspell lyrics. So everybody that doesn't speak Portuguese, that was the language I used for the poems obviously, were really keen. So that was my job. Instead of writing new stuff, I already have, you know, new lyrics. I had the 1755 concept also to work with, but that's a lot of time from my free time and my family time, and I translated the book myself, and I did it many repairs, many proofs, and it was a painstaking job until, you know, to the point say, oh, I'm going to print this shit. It sounds so bad now because some stuff is from 2001. So I rewrote it a little bit to still the same feeling, but for English. And then we are going also to release a Moonspell biography, first in Portugal, and then in English, called Of Wolf and Man, written by a friend of us that has the same name as our guitar player. So it's Ricardo Amorim, but it's Ricardo S. Amorim. And about our 25 years together as a band. So there will be many books about Moonspell, and the project with the label, with the book label, is also to print quality poetry from people that do not have poetry as their main occupation. So right now we're going to make my book. We're going to make Till Lindeman's book, Quiet Nights, in Portuguese as well this year, and we're going to make a book also from a friend of mine who sings in one of my favorite bands, Bizarro Locomotiva, a band from Portugal, and also a friend of us who is, you know, a deputy in the parliament. So these kind of people, like out of the box, they like to write poetry, and we're going to make this, and it's pretty exciting because I always loved books, I always collaborated with labels, I always translated stuff into Portuguese, and now it's my turn also to use my experience to become a small editor. Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
You're a travel musician, you have seen many different cultures and countries in your life. What do you think, what the world can learn from the Portuguese, and vice versa?
Well, we learned a lot from every country. We learned discipline, we learned chaos, you know, we learned how to be resilient, and especially how to use our Portuguese pessimism in our favor. You know, making a band, expressing ourselves, and dealing with it. You know, because many bands, why there is not many bands from Portugal? There's talent there, but some people just wouldn't go through the grinding wheels like we did. You know, we were a bit more braver on that aspect. So, on the other hand, what do people can learn from the Portuguese? For instance, make noise on the internet. I don't know. We have proved ourselves, like many small countries, that together and with the national goal we can do much stuff. There's a lot of proximity, family values in Portugal. There's warmth, you know, and I think that could be learned. For certain countries, some countries that we go and people are just, in our opinion, too cold for their kids, and they say, like, come on. So Portugal is a country that doesn't have any kind of problem in showing it's romantic and it's melancholic, and people love each other. There's also a lot of assholes and killers in Portugal, but I think that, and also I think something that people could learn from Portugal more technically. We have a lot of scientists, etc. But as Portugal is not in the eye of the world, now it is more. Sometimes people, like for instance, red wine. You go to a shop and you got red wine from all around the world. And Portugal red wine wins a lot of prizes, and it's considered like factor quality price, one of the best, like the Chilean. But you never found it, you know. And I think people could learn more about Portugal. You know, not only about Lisbon and Porto, not only about the touristy scenes, because they don't see nothing special. You know, it's not tourism to go and drink a beer in a terrace. You know, you can do that at your own country. So yeah, I think to answer your question, I think probably we cannot teach anything, but we have values and legends and history, and I think our new album is a good example that it's worth to give a shot, definitely.
Last time you mentioned how much you're into the Marvel comics.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite hero?
Well, I have, in retrospect, probably Spider-Man. That's with me since I was a little kid, and my son loves Spider-Man. But then I evolved, you know. So I think my favorite character ever from Marvel is Mephisto, of course. And
That was my guess.
yeah, his saga with the X-Men and all these alternative realities. Marvel is amazing. It's much more than, you know, comic books. It's true culture, and especially coming from America. Stan Lee had an amazing culture. He knew a lot. He and his staff, he knew about Nordic mythology to create Thor and Asgard. He spoke about the Nephilim. He spoke about the Era goddess. He had Olympians fighting against Asgardians. I think it's great. Like, I think a lot of people now are excited about Game of Thrones and Tolkien, and Tolkien is a very old author, and so is George R.R. Martin, but they are more interested because of the films and the TV series. And Marvel had this world, you know, build up since they were formed. I'm a big fan, and I will be very sad when Stan Lee dies, because even though he has great new creative writers, he's like, you know, he's the god of that pantheon, and then things will be definitely very different for Marvel fans, and we can still look at him when he does the cameos on the movies. It's great. Whatever is being done from Marvel now, there's great movies. I love all the Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man 3 eats too many eggs in the basket, like Sandman and Venom. Too much, but the others, I love this new actor. He's totally Peter Parker, much more than Spider-Man. And I love the X-Men series, the Wolverine, but for instance Daredevil is crap. The series are good. Also the Defender series from Netflix, I didn't like it at all. But some other stuff, it's really cool. I always keep up with stuff, and I always reread some major books that have had great influence on me, like the Galactus saga or the Black Phoenix saga. I think from X-Men. I think they are not War and Peace, but those are classics from the comic books. Yeah.
If you could possess any superpower, what would you choose?
Invisibility.
Why is that?
Well, I love the Invisible Man character, and it's something I cannot really do. You know, in Portugal, Moonspell has turned out to be a big band, so it's very hard to be on the street without being recognized. And even in some places, I think people won't recognize. I think, I don't know why, but my wife always tells me, well, people will always recognize you. You're very, I don't know, they pick you up from the crowd. Say, but why? Sometimes I'm so discreet, you know, with a hoodie, people recognize you. So I would like to be invisible sometimes, and I know many friends that Danny feels that as well. We both have an Invisible Man tattoo. That's a curiosity, yeah.
Last time we talked a little bit about politics too, and you were kind of pessimistic. You sounded pessimistic about your country. Is there any changes, any positive changes recently?